have been a number of efforts to amend the Constitution. Maybe we talk about one of the most progressive constitutions is the American Constitution, which was drafted way back in the 1700s, but it has undergone a number of amendments. Well, in Kenya, that effort has been there since 2010 after the promulgation of the Constitution. You can talk about Punguza Mzigo, you do remember. There was also Okoa Kenya, there's the BBI initiative, you also had the NADCO report. All these are some of the efforts just geared towards ensuring that we also amend the Constitution, because any progressive constitution will require some amendments. Even the Indian Constitution, which has been hailed as one of also the most progressive constitutions in the world, has also undergone a number of amendments. That is what we will be putting much emphasis on, but allow me to recap what has been happening in the last couple of days, beginning with the last couple of minutes where President Dr. William Ruto has officially officiated Nyaribari Chache Cancer Center. He's in Kisii for a 3-day working tour. He's in his second day. And perhaps to just mention what we do expect a little bit later in the president itinerary is that he will be also at Keroka Hospital. He's also going to be officiating the Ekamba Affordable Housing in Keroka, and also he will be commissioning the Daraja Mbili still in that same county. Also, in the course of the week, Kenya finished the Olympics, the Summer Olympics in Paris, France, with 11 medals. Some quite mixed results there, but at the end of the day, we were top in Africa, but number 17 in the world. In Meru, the county assembly did have already impeached the governor, now await Senate to make a determination in regards to her fate. And also teachers have also threatened to down their tools in the coming term in regards to what they say is the government has not honored its CBA with them, and also employment of intern teachers. A number of things have been happening, but allow me now to delve straight in the topic of discussion. We will be graced by Shadrach Okech, who is a social democrat who has decided to initiate that process on his own. He'll be telling us more about that, because we have seen a number of attempts to actually amend the Constitution. Some reports are gathering dust, and especially the latest one being the NADCO report. And also we'll be joined by constitutional lawyer Gibson Gisore. But first things first, allow me to introduce our guest, Shadrach Okech. Karibu sana bwana Okech.
Thank you.
And welcome to KBC News Tech.
Oh, thank you.
When we hear about matters constitutional amendments, it started way back, but the 2010 Constitution put everything in place. I remember when President Mwai Kibaki, back then at Uhuru Park, when he had the Constitution, which heralded a new dawn in Kenya. And more or less like 14 years, there has been a number of attempts to amend the Constitution to address some of the issues that have been dogging the country. And yours is one of them. We had the BBI initiative, which was thrown out by the courts because of a number of technicalities. We also had the NADCO report, which, as we speak, is gathering dust somewhere. Now you also have your initiative. Tell us about your initiative, and why do you believe the country is rife for a constitutional review?
If we can recollect, by the time we were enacting the new Constitution, there were a number of areas that people were saying that 20% of the Constitution hadn't been affected, but let's just pass it, but we'll change that later. Now we've had the Constitution with the implementation phase for 11 years now, and we can test and we can see that there are areas that we really need to improve. Having tested it for 10 years, of course, which also includes the winner take it all, which the BBI was attempting to address as well. So we need to look at those issues and better it, and better the document. It's a good document, but we can better it.
And before we look at what are some of the things that you are proposing in your initiative, maybe we can look at some of the things that this Constitution has been able to address, or some of the gains that we have been able to realize in the 11 years of implementation.
Yes, I think devolution was a great thing that we put in our Constitution. it has been able to address enough issues, though it has problems, the challenges, but it has improved. You know, the centralized system, there are areas they could not really get to touch. So they put leadership closer to the people, which I think is a great improvement with respect to the new constitution.
All right. Just a minute. Let's hold the thought. As I had mentioned as we began this show, is that the President William Ruto is on a development tour of Kisii County, and as we speak, is currently addressing the people who have gathered there. Let's first of all listen in. Kenya Shillings, the cancer center, has been officially launched a few minutes ago, and also 17 markets will be constructed in Kisii. We'll be coming a little bit later with a comprehensive report on that in our subsequent bulletin. But just in case you joined us, this is KBC News Check, where we are looking at the state of the nation and more specifically on the 2010 constitutional review. There have been efforts to amend the constitution since we promulgated it in 2010 and actually started using it, or actually officially rolled it out in 2013. So we're about 11 years or so. But for any progressive constitution, even the old ones, especially for the Indian and the American one, which dates back to 1788, there have been efforts and actually successful constitution. But here in Kenya, nothing has been solid yet. We're talking about the BBI report. You do remember we also had the Punguza Mizigo, which had been spearheaded by one of the political leaders of Third Way Alliance Party, Ekuru Okot. And we also have Okwa Kenya by one professor, but nothing solid yet. Yet we have another one now by Shadrach Okech, who is a social democrat, and I'm privileged to have him in studio. And he's going to tell us why we really need to have the constitution review now, and what difference will it be in relations to other constitution reviews that we have seen in the country which have not picked up yet. Shadrach, welcome back.
Thank you.
Before we crossed over to Kisii, we were looking at why we need to amend the constitution and some of the gains that we have made since devolution. We kicked off the devolution in 2013, and what we can also be able to build that on. There have been efforts to amend it. There have been efforts to amend it a number of times. The latest one being the NADCO one. Of course, we are waiting to see how things pan out in the NADCO report, but BBI actually died in court, so to speak. What makes your initiative different, and is it political?
Of course, every constitutional amendment is a political cause. But we just observed a couple of days ago where there were protests across the country. The youths were protesting, of course, against the finance bill, which culminated again into wanting the president to go. I thought it is the right time for us to recheck our constitution, because I think the problems of this country are emanating from lack of full implementation of our constitution. But then we also need to improve on it to factor in all the problems that we have in it. Like for me, I see there is overrepresentation. We have so many members of parliament. I don't think we need that high number of parliament, which increases the wage bill. So when the wage bill is, like they say, is about 70%, it means we have limited amount of money for development, which would guarantee maybe even youth employment and cure the unemployment in the country. So in attempting to address those issues, we need to relook at the document and, of course, see if it would help us manage the wage bill and those costs and those incidental costs and improve on a general running of our country.
And I'm quite sure a lot of Kenyans would like to see the fine print on your document in regards to some of the things that you want amended. A practical example, if I was asked as a Kenyan, what I would like amended is the representation. We are overrepresented. You look at, I have an MCA, an MP, a woman rep, a governor, a senator, a deputy governor, a county commissioner, a ward rep. Basically, in Kenya, we have an issue of representation. How are you addressing that in your quest to amend the constitution?
First, I'm proposing that we reduce the number of members of parliament from the current 349 to 210.
210 MPs.
Yes. And I'm also proposing that we reduce the Senate from 68 to 47. We do away with, we abolish the nomination slots. That is a huge number, because you look at it, it's about 139 members of parliament that we are removing from the exchequer. With that, I think we would attract more quality with respect to our representation. I've observed over time, ever since we came with this new constitution and we increased the number of members of parliament, the quality of the debates in the parliament have gone low. And I think this is due to over-representation, and also people don't, even MPs don't have enough time to contribute in the August House.
Allow me now to just throw a spanner in the works in regards to reducing the number of MPs from 349 to 210.
Yes.
What that means is that we might have to do some boundaries delimitation, because we have to reduce those the number of representation. We know very well nobody wants to be left out. Even people are clamoring for more constituencies, because they say from our constituency is quite big, we need to have another constituency. Don't you think a number of people would not warm up to that idea, and especially those whose constituency would have to be swallowed by other constituencies?
I would, that idea that the constituency is big doesn't wash for me. Because if you look at the Senate and even the governorship, a senator represents an entire county and it's only one person. Why would the member of parliament feel that the constituency is big and the senator, where he's covering is small? So for that reason doesn't wash. And again, in my attempting to, I just want us to go back to, we used to have 210 constituencies before the increase. So we can just revert back to the 210 constituencies that we had before the promulgation of the new constitution, which is just a cut and paste job. Yes.
What about avoiding the legal loopholes that other constitution review amendments or amendments have faced? Practical example, the BBI had all the blessings of two principals, including the head of state back then, who was Uhuru Kenyatta, but it was actually the court tore it apart from the High Court all the way to the Apex Court.
That was a technicality. I think the court pronounced itself that an initiative by the president is not a popular initiative. But of course, the Constitution allows any member of any citizen to initiate a popular, especially from ordinary person. That's why, for me, I think as an ordinary citizen, I'm allowed legally to initiate amendments to the Constitution, and the court cannot knock me off. You know, the presidency, there is an assumption that he occupies a special seat. So there are other avenues of changing the Constitution, especially maybe through Parliament and all that. So I think the court pronounced itself. So legally, I think I'm on the right path.
Away from the BBI one, the other a practical example is the Punguza Mizigo by Dr. Ekuru Okot. He even went to seek support from even county assemblies, but unfortunately he didn't see the light of day. How are you going to avoid some of the loopholes other than the court ones?
I think Punguza Mizigo had certain outrageous proposals that many people had to fight against. Like, it was proposing that we abolish Senate and we become with MPs only 47. I think that was a bit far-fetched. But my proposals, I believe, no one would really, apart from the only technical bit that I know I would probably have a problem is reducing the number of members of parliament. That is the only thing that I know can draw heat. But generally, my proposal, I think many people, because all that are in those other documents, most of them have also captured them here. There are things, like people are saying BBI, okay, there were certain places that were bad, but most of it were good. Even the Okoya one, there was certain small percentage that was bad, but most of it was good. So I've just captured all that I believe are good to effect a meaningful change without without compromising on generally what I feel would be a good document for the country.
What is the name of your initiative and who are behind it? Is it just Shadrach Okech who is behind it?
For now it's Shadrach Okech, but I've, because of the Gen Z, I've called it a Gen Z Amendments Bill. Yeah, to capture, because also they didn't participate. They didn't participate in the 2010 Constitution, but now they're also saying certain things that I think that I've included here, like probably making corruption a capital offense to be handled within a specific time. So I've factored in some of the proposals that they were saying, so that they can also be part and parcel of the document that we are going to change. So I call it Gen Z Amendment Bill.
Again, you are the only one who is behind this?
Yes, yes. I'm the only one who started this.
The resources, the manpower, all these things you're doing alone?
I believe all these I've been doing alone, but I believe many other Kenyans will join me along the way. Yes, I believe many other Kenyans will join me along the way. Yeah. But
how far are you? How far are you for the benefits of our viewers?
I'm about to launch the signature collection. I'm yet to launch it, but I'm almost launching it because I'm still working on the bill. These are just proposals. I'm still working on the bill. So I'm about to launch the signature collections.
Yeah, but unfortunately, the IEBC is not well constituted as we speak.
Yes, but that will not stop me from collecting. You know, changing the constitution is a process. So, and you know, I must get 1 million signatures. So I'll just start by collecting signatures. So when IBC will be in place, it will get us somewhere. Yeah.
How are you planning to address a number of issues, and especially the 2/3 gender rule or 2/3 gender principle, which I do remember even Chief Justice David Kenani Maraga had given his recommendation that we should abolish even Parliament because we are not seeing end for the 2/3 gender principle, or even affirmative action. How do you intend to deal with the Gen Z petition as you christen it?
Let me start by saying, first, you know, Parliament as currently constituted is illegal if we were to implement our constitution fully. If we were to observe the document, the Parliament is currently illegally constituted because it doesn't meet a 3rd gender rule. But in my proposal, I suggest that a 3rd gender rule apply for appointing positions, not elected positions. Yeah, because it also conflicts the Bill of Rights. Yeah.
All right, and just to beef up our panel, we are now joined by Gibson Gisori, an advocate of the High Court and governance expert and also a law lecturer at the University of Embu. Karibu sana wakili.
Asante sana.
When you talk about constitutional amendment, we have to look at the legals and even the jargons themselves. And he was talking about 11 years since we started with the new 2010 constitution. Are we rife? Are we ripe for a constitutional review?
Thank you, Troy. I'm sorry I've made it late due to attendance in court. That's a very good question and a very important question, and it's something which has been talked about in various forums, political, even in social circles, whether our constitution is really at the place where we need to start looking at it. Remember, there was a lot of contest in terms of us making the constitution. We had several reviews. The first commission never succeeded. There was a referendum which failed. Then there came 208. Now we say, now with this we need a new constitution which gave impetus to us coming up with a new constitution. But then at the tail end of passing the constitution, there was also a contest whether we should be able to pass it the way it is or whether we should further put some further amendments, whether we actually the major contest, whether we should go purely parliamentary system or presidential system. For purposes of clarity to the viewers, we ended up having an amalgam where there is shared power between the presidency and the parliament. And that, I think, for some reason, for scholars of constitutional law, gives a recipe to the kind of disasters we are seeing, because we had been in a presidential system which was not working for us. Then there was the contest between the Moi Kibaki camp and the Orange camp, which was led by Raila Odinga. then we had to come up with something in between. And this in between is where the issues are coming. Because if we were to go purely a parliamentary system, we could have a president, and then on the other side, we have a parliament who runs the state. The president is the head of the country. But then we did not create that separation. We had a president with some powers and parliament to effect proper changes, so proper checks. We didn't go for the prime minister who was powerful. And this was akin to what was borrowed from Tanzania and Uganda. You know, they have a similar system where they have, do you know, for example, do you know the name of the prime minister of Tanzania? You don't, but there exists one. So Uganda the same.
What you're saying is that they practice more or less like a hybrid system.
Yes, it's a hybrid system.
And the presidential at the same time.
Yes.
But with trimmed powers for the
prime minister. So, but for us, we do not effect the prime minister's seat. So we need to actually have the law change to effect that. The kind of seat which Musalia sits is an unconstitutional seat. You see, we're still having those challenges. Now, those are some of the things. And then there's the thing which I think I have found you guys talking about, the two-third gender rule, which is almost impossible to achieve. We really have to go an extra length to achieve that. And the proposal has been coming to Parliament, but effecting that has become a tall order. You remember even Maraga gave an advisory that Parliament should be dissolved because of that, because it's illegal, as he said. So those are some of the things bedefiling the Constitution. And then there's the issue of regional balance, because the kind of presidential system we took is one which the winner takes it all. But we are a country of several tribes and regions which are peculiar in their way, which you need to, even the Constitution itself kind of embraces who Kenyans are, that we need to have the face of Kenya. When we talk about the face of Kenya, I need to see Troy there. I need to see somebody from Bandera. I need to see somebody from my region in Kisia. And in Nyanza, when you talk about Nyanza, you're going to talk about one community, because there are several communities. There's Western, which is, I mean, even if you get Western, still you, Bukusus will say we are not reflected if you choose somebody from the other side of Kakamega, because they're not the same. Even the dialect is a bit different. So the face of Kenya is a complex thing. It's a complex theory which we need to satisfy. So when we talk about whether we need to change the Constitution, is really a big discussion. It's a big discussion which Kenyans have got. You remember that we have had the aspect of the BBI.
Yes.
Never succeeded. Why? The reason why it succeeded, our Constitution is not meant to be changed at whims or at will. It's a fully participatory process, and that's where the likes of the BBS have not been able to succeed, because they are meant to satisfy a certain quotient, a political equation, not the Kenyan people's equation. So it's until the Kenyan people, you need to do a lot of public sensitization. People need to own it up. You need to follow the process and midwife it like a process of giving rise to a baby. It's not something you wake up and you find you have given birth to a baby. So it's something which takes an incubation period. So Kenyans have got to take that process, and then they have to be willing. If people, some quarters or some sections feel that it's not going to happen, and that's why it's becoming very difficult for the politicians, because they're the first ones who want to amend the Constitution for their own ends. But for some good reason, the drafters of the Constitution put in very strong measures of ensuring that our Constitution does not. There are countries, for example, it's not wrong to change Constitution. There's some constitutions in the world which they wake up and change. Like I think in the Scandinavian country, even the way they run their government, sometimes even I asked an ambassador to, I think, Swiss ambassador in Kenya, he said even that he doesn't know who his prime minister is, because they keep changing every day.
Yes,
because it's not a big thing. Their constitution allows that. That it's like a company. Today you are a CEO, tomorrow somebody else takes up. You get tired, you say, I'm not interested. They quickly take the next one in line. And that is okay for them. But our Constitution is one which is fully participatory. The quotient of public participation under the Constitution has a very high threshold, which even bills of Parliament, you have seen them, even the finance bill, have not been able to satisfy, especially something touching Mwananchi. So there's one thing which politicians or the people in authority need to realize, is that Kenyans are not well sensitized. And the fact that you can be able to do call Troy to some hotel and tell him, you know, this is what we want to change the constitution, or do some rally somewhere, that is not enough public participation. Kenyans have got to be brought to a threshold. They need to understand what it is that they are changing. But as long as that is not been done, it will be very difficult to change the constitution. Of course, we, as elites or people who are learned, we see there are some challenges. But then it's something which we have. It's like a marriage. There's no easy way out. If you have got to go through a divorce, it's a divorce. You have to go to court. You have to go through the process. The allegations have got to be put. The allegations have got to be very clear for the divorce to go through. So that is the kind of situation which we find ourselves in as Kenyans, and then we have got to be fully participatory.
I totally concur with that, because you do remember even during the 2010 constitution, we were talking about Jisome, Jiamulie and stuff. Yeah. It had to be translated into at least Swahili so that people may understand better. Let me go back to you, Shadrach. I'm looking at some of the
just before Troy, sorry.
Yes.
There's that aspect. In places like Tanzania, even an act of parliament, places, for example, I've done a lot of comparative analysis in terms of constitutionalism. The only problem we have in Kenya is that we have a constitution and we claim that our people have gone to school, but people have not been sensitized on terms of constitutional issues, which they should. In places like Tanzania, you find that anything government does has got to be translated even to the local language in all the 85 languages they have. If it's the constitution, it's translated so that everybody understands. That speaks to something like us having our constitution translated into local language. The way the Bible has been translated, that is what should be done to our constitution, so that you should know Kenyans should be able to claim ignorance. But politicians benefit out of the ignorance of people of the constitution, so they don't do that. They rather, you say if somebody a minister, then he's good. And that is the concept the constitution itself does not want. So that is where the challenge is, and I think it's something which we need to do, so that now it will be easier if we agree as Kenyans that indeed the proposals, that is something we need to pass. But if you have not sensitized the people, but you want to blackmail them and rob them blind, then there lies the challenge, because the constitution already sees that as mischief. And Botswana has done it in a very nice way, and that's where Botswana is very harmonious. Anything you have seen the former president, you go to the local elders to go and discuss issues of bedeviling the country. And the local, so everybody's at par. If you make a decision, you make a decision as a country and keep moving. That's why they keep moving smoothly. And Tanzania, the same thing. But as Kenyans, we have political brokers.
Exactly.
Who don't want,
follow a lot of Kenyans follow what their leader says. If he was in support of BBI, it becomes a whole political exercise. And Shadrach, I'm looking at the NADCO report. I'm looking at, which now is on the shelves. I'm looking at the BBI. I'm looking at Okoa Kenya. I'm looking at Punguza Mizigo. Gentlemen, let's be very honest. Let's be honest. These documents had some goodwill for Kenyans and had some good things for Kenyans. You, Shadrach, have you picked up on something? Because I'm quite sure you've read all the attempts to amend the constitution, and maybe what have you been able to pick from all these reports for your document?
Yeah, I've looked at all those reports, so I was trying to harmonize the good in them. Like, for example, there is a proposal which was in BBI, and again it is in NADCO report about establishment of a National Health Commission. There have been issues around recruitment and hiring of health practitioners, which to some extent people feel like the county government have failed, because that the health is totally devolved. But I just think it just has issues to do with recruitment, and I think we can have a national commission, health commission, that would address their recruitment, and of course to address their packages, and of course and discipline and forth and like that. So that is a very keen thing, and the medical practitioners really liked this. Even with the BBI, I could tell the way they were celebrating this National Health Commission. There was also an attempt to address the winner take it all, but I wasn't seeing how the BBI was addressing that. So in my proposal, I've created a position of oversight leader, where the runners-up in the election has an office domiciled in Parliament, and his deputy. That, I think, attempts to address the winner-take-it-all issue.
And just a quick one, because even collection of signatures is an exercise that's going to eat into your pocket, and also lobbying the 47 county assemblies also as well. Who is funding you, or do you have very deep pockets? Because this is an endeavor that will take up quite a big chunk. You do remember the BBI Kenyans even were talking about, we really need to know how much was spent in this exercise in futility.
No, so far I don't have funders, but I have a belief that many people will join this because you can't change a constitution alone. You just make proposals, and if many Kenyans buy into this, they will join me and they popularize it. I'm attempting to collect signatures via the social media platform, which is easier. I believe there are over 10 million Kenyans that are on social media. So that would be the easiest and less expensive way of collecting signatures. Currently, I'm already doing a website for that will aid my collection of signatures in the process. Yes.
And Wakili, I'm looking at something that we had mentioned here on overrepresentation, and maybe because we have MCA, we have women rep, and when we go to the provincial administration, we have ward rep, we have county, sub-county, ACC, DCC. As a Kenyan, you are overrepresented. I'm also looking at the duplication of roles, the provincial administration vis-a-vis what we have as elected leaders. And still on that, looking at the national scene, we have the Public Service Commission, we have the head of public service, we have, basically we are overrepresented. Is this something that we really need to look keenly as Kenyans in regards to that, because they are eating into the little resources that we have?
I mean, that's a very good question, Troy. And why do I say it's a good reason? Kenyans, we need to look at the structure of government we have and have a clear, streamlined public service to start with, and even on the side of the elected leaders. Because from where I sit, I have a rather very controversial view, which is, of course, I'm entitled to. We need to really look into the aspect of these seats which we decide to give to people. So that is really highly being abused.
Mostly affirmative action.
Yes, the affirmative action seats. We look at the situation like in Nakuru. If we talk of Nakuru, Nakuru as a county itself, you count the number of women who have been elected. They are the majority that the men. I think there are only 2 men who have been elected in the whole county. 2 or 3, I don't know, it could be around, but the women are numbering up to around 8 or 9. So the issue with Kenyans is not about the fact that they cannot be able to elect women. It's about women making themselves ready to actually be able to lead. And that can be cured by us doing enough public sensitization and ensuring that there's no violence in elections. If IBC and the Internal Security Ministry work in tandem to ensure that we will have more women being elected, we will do away with this issue of us having to have women reps from all who have just been elected. So that is one. I mean, if there is an amendment, which we need to do is that one, because we need to do a lot of civic education and ensure that Kenya is a safe place for everyone, whether a woman running, whether it's a young girl who wants to run, let them run and sell the idea. And then it's a prior idea. Look at Linet Toto. Linet Toto stood for something and she was elected.
Yes.
So we can have a lot of more women like Linet Toto across the country, so that we don't need to cherry pick and say, let all the counties, let's have women who are going to serve as this, and then we have to do a lot of nominations. So that is one thing. The issue of duplication of roles, you see the issue of even duplication of roles, something which the public service needs to streamline. But look at the issue of usage of funds. Parliament is checking government. How do you check government while you allocate yourself resources and use them? Who checks you? That is a big question. That is a big question which we need to look at. instead of giving this money to the counties, we could not be having issues of deficits to the county. So CDF needs to be scrapped. Once CDF is been scrapped, this money needs to be sent to the counties. Once it has been sent to the counties, shouldn't sit at the counties, should go down to the ward reps. Ward reps are government officials who have been chosen, not the MCAs. The MCAs should be there to check, the way Parliament should be able to check any other as arm of government. So we need to separate politicians and money usage in this country, so that we can have proper checks and balances. And when we do that, then we can be, but the challenge, there's one big challenge in Kenya. Politicians want to allocate themselves everything. They are the people to make that decision. They can't make it because they can't take away money from them. It's like I serve you food, you cannot want to be told that you cannot eat it. So that is something which we need to talk about, and that leads to a lot of public wastage and pilferage of public resources. Because if we had proper checks for the counties, once we've given them these resources, then you know the counties are the people acting on the ground, in the grassroots. We don't need money in the national office. Even the issue of public health officials is because government staffs counties of monies, so they're not able to hire health staff. That is where he has come up with that proposal. Let's have a national commission, which is not a problem. If we're able to create an illegal seat for prime minister, there's nothing wrong as having that commission to hire doctors for purposes of giving health care, because that touches everyone. The prime minister says, I don't know who it touches. It's just serving a political interest. So there's the aspect of goodwill. We need to look at this thing in very clear perspective, so that we can be able to help Kenyans. So that is how I look at it, and I feel the issue of, for example, there is also the aspect of the provincial administration, who are still well alive in office. What are they doing? The constitution does not know them.
Yes.
Those people should be, actually it said that they were to be redeployed, but they are still in office. You hear county commissioner giving directives, even sometimes he has to speak, he has more power than the governor. You wonder, which structure is this? So the part where some politicians were talking about mongrel of a government, that is actually where the mongrel is.
Yes. And maybe in your document, what exactly are you looking at in terms of governance? Because in Kenya we have a presidential system, but mostly we have used a hybrid system where we have a PM and now we have a prime cabinet secretary, and as Wakili has noted that is not in the 2010 constitution. How have you envisaged governance? Is it a presidential, is it a hybrid, or is it a parliamentary?
No, it is a presidential. And even the document we have now is a presidential system.
Yes.
The one that we had before was a hybrid system. So in this one, we have just gone to fully presidential, but I'd wanted to factor in, I'd wanted the provincial administration to be abolished. It's here. But there was also a pronouncement earlier by the courts on those county commissioners as illegal at some point in time. There's also been a pronouncement on CDF as illegal. Yeah, and you see the
twice.
So, but you see the presidency, I don't know, it doesn't want to affect it. So I think I've just wanted to stick with the presidential, but I wanted to
actually the president wanted them to be added money in the CDF for them to do even housing.
And these things we can really cure them in a constitutional review. Another thing, Wakili, I'm looking at executive appointments. Flashback 2 months ago in May, the then Azimio leader Raila Odinga faulted some executive orders by the head of state, and especially on appointments. If at all we were looking at a constitutional amendment where we would review the executive orders or appointments as done by the president, wouldn't that be denying the head of state the powers bestowed on him by the Kenyan people?
We wouldn't. We wouldn't, because the reason why we are criticizing, or anybody will want to criticize the president on his appointments is because the appointments are illegal. If the president was to actually be able to follow through the constitution, you do realize we have a very big challenge in the AG's office, and I hope the new nominee AG will be able to cure some of the challenges we are having. The former AG, publicly before he was sacked out of office, which is also a story of another day, whether that was legal or illegal. said that I've been, if it's the, you cannot accuse me of not giving good advice. You should actually be asking whether my advice is being considered. So that clearly tells you there's a problem. So we cannot be talking about that. The president just needs to get good legal advice that this is what the Constitution requires of you. You exercise your powers within the Constitution, not exercise your powers arbitrarily. Because arbitrariness leads to an abuse of a process. Because that is where we have the checks and balances. And that's where we are asking Parliament, can you have some spine to check some of the issues? Because we could not be in this debt, the debt question which we are all suffering about. And Kenya's economy is said to be going to collapse any time. Because of Parliament. If Parliament stood their ground, if Parliament did even a quarter of the job they're supposed to do, we could not be anywhere near the kind of crisis we are having. Because now the only arm which is left to check government is the courts, and the courts can only act if something is presented to them. And why should the court be shielding or be doing the work of Parliament? Because Parliament is asleep. Parliament is been changed into an arm of the executive instead of being an independent arm. And that's where we have the problem. To ensure that there's proper governance, all arms of government need to work in tandem. It's like a stool, the traditional African stool. If one leg does not work, you cannot be able to sit on it. That is akin to the situation which we are in Kenya, where the parliament leg is totally emasculated. It does not work. It cannot carry the weight of Kenya. And you see, these are the elected leaders who have been given so much power to check government and to represent the people. But they're not representing people, they're representing the executive, leading to the kind of challenges we face. That's why I think Gen Z were very animated to go and deal with Parliament. So that is not something which came out of the blues. It's because we have a weak, sick, and bedridden Parliament, and they don't care. Those guys, when you go there with some small money, even if you have the 5,000 or 10,000, they quickly take it and do what you want. And that is the unfortunate bit. If we can be able to separate the bunnies from the leadership, even with the CDF, they're still on the tech. So I don't know. If we take the CDF, I think they might just die.
And they have an issue when the CDF is...
Yeah, they really jump up. They start saying we are impeaching the president. And that is why we have all these problems.
Let's hear what Shadrach would want Kenyans to know in regards to your constitutional amendment process as we wrap up.
I think Kenyans need to read this document in total. There are quite a number of proposals in it, which I think is attempting to address the challenges that we had in the 2010 Constitution. And also allowing the people who never participated, like the Gen Zs, to also have a say on it. Yeah. There are quite enough. We want to strengthen devolution. We want to reorganize Parliament. We want to do away with the CDF, which actually is a big problem. Whatever he was saying about Parliament being in bed with the executive is because they have their money of CDF, so they've forgotten to do their role of oversight. So they can't oversight. They're only keen on theirs, the package of CDF, which once they get, they don't care about other aspects of oversight.
Let's take a quick break. We'll be back to wrap up. And remember, on the second hour, we'll be looking at youth engagement in peace building. I'll be joined by 3 young men and women who will be talking about... We also remember yesterday was International Youth Day, so we'll be talking about that in the next hour. But let's take a quick break and then we'll be right back. Thank you so much for keeping it KBC Channel 1. We are looking at the state of the nation, and more specifically, there has been a clamor for the constitutional review, which we have seen in the last couple of years. We have tried, but unfortunately, there's no way we have been able to circumvent the challenges that come about with the constitutional amendment, the NADCO, the BBI, the Nguza Mizigo. They haven't seen the light of day, and now we have a new one called the Gen Z proposed amendments by Shadrach Okech. As we wrap up, we'd like to your final word on your constitutional review process and what would you like to tell Kenyans? Who would you like to come on board?
I would like everyone, every Kenyan, to come on board to better our document for prosperity. I've really thought about nearly everything that I think is possible to improve on it, but I still welcome more ideas on the document because I'm still working on the bill. So more ideas are welcome that can help enrich the document that I've prepared.
You are not under any party?
No. Not under any party.
Okay, because we had Punguza Mizigo was by Third Way Alliance, we had the BBI by the two principals back then, and we have the NADCO report also by political leaders as well. Wakili, how long short is it to amend the constitution? The US, the 1700 document, 76, has been able to be amended. The Indian one, which has hundreds of years, has been able to have been...
No, the Indian one has not reached 100.
Okay. It's more progressive and a little bit older than ours.
Yes.
What are some of the loopholes that we are supposed to avoid? Because the 4-5 processes have all ended up in a ditch.
I mean, that's a very important question, and I think it should be that we need to do some kind of public sensitization and civic education to the political class of this country, that they cannot be able to move without Mwananchi, and that is where the biggest challenge is. They always want to move without Mwananchi. They always want to doing some few people and some few political brokers to change the constitution to their own ends of the means. But the constitution itself is self-serving. It has those, it foresaw those challenges. The drafters of the constitution were able to fix some of those issues because they knew if you couldn't be able to wake up and amend the Kenyan constitution the way you want, and through parliament. Remember, we have gone through all these processes which the political class is trying to take us through. We had the 1966 changing of our from a bicameral to a unitary, where we ended up having political repression for long. So we have seen it all. So we know the challenges of us giving our power, full power or authority for politicians to make decisions for us. The reason why the draft of the constitution saw it fit to make it very difficult to change this constitution. And politicians do not still believe it, that they cannot change the constitution. So they are always out to just trick Kenyans to change the constitution, but the law in itself as it is does not allow. So it's until the politicians realize this, it's until they realize that there have been far too many attempts to change the constitution, which have come short. And then they need to raise the threshold of the Kenyan people and be able to sell the idea so that we move as a bloc. As long as we're not moving as a bloc in Kenya, there's no constitution amendment.
Indeed.
Yes.
And unfortunately, we have run out of time for the first hour on the State of the Nation, and thank you so much for joining us. I had been engaging two experts in their own field. On my left, we have Shadrach Okecha, who is the initiator of the constitutional amendment process. He has dubbed Gen Z. He intends to spearhead the exercise of constitutional amendment, which we have seen in the country is quite at all order, but he believes with your support we can be able to do that. For any progressive constitution, you have to have some amendments. Even time is changing. And just next to him, we have a constitutional lawyer and advocate of the High Court, also a university don, and also a governance expert, Gibson Gisore. As usual, it's always a pleasure hosting you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. But on the second hour, as I mentioned earlier, we are looking at the efforts of the youth in the youth engagement in peace building and engaging the youth. I'm looking at even what we have been having in the last couple of weeks or months of the Gen Z protest. And we are also looking at youth being radicalized into other organizations like the Al-Shabaab that we had in the years 2010, but that has fizzled out. How can we bolster and ensure that our youth engage in peace building? We'll be talking about that in a short while. Let's take a break, then we'll be right back.